evening, Wakefield, and welcome to the May 9th, 2022 Town Council meeting. I hereby call this meeting to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very pleased to say that we have everyone in attendance tonight, including our newly elected and re-elected town councilors. So welcome Bob Vincent, welcome again for a full term Mike McLean, and of course Jonathan Chines, re-elected. We're so happy to have you here and look forward to a great year. Do we have any public engagement online, Madam Chair? Clerk.
No, we just received that one comment, and
So
that's all we have.
So I'll just mention, we did receive a comment about the Water Street situation, so I'm going to ask Steve to outline it and answer it.
Sure. As the council is aware, the beginning of the Water Street issue, we did engage outside counsel to perhaps go the receivership route, and we've all talked about that. And we did pay that counsel. Actually, our town council, Tom Mullen, engaged with him to come in as he was an expert in that area, which we are not. And so we did pay that person. Had the request come in a little bit earlier, I could have looked it up and find out what we paid him, but I will pull that information and I'll send that out to the board. It comes through our legal budget on our contractual services section. I just don't have that in my office, so we'll have that tomorrow when we'll send it around to Mr. Vukaj and we'll send it around to the board.
And as a reminder, all of our expenses are
Online anyway.
online and available,
Right.
so for the public. Okay, item number 5, reorganization. After a wonderful year, when I think back on it, starting with, we all started on Zoom, and here we are a year later, and what a year it's been. So I just want to thank all my colleagues for a great year, and I look forward to supporting our new chair and vice chair. I will open nominations for chair.
I would like to nominate Maureen Butt.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
And would you accept the nomination?
I do accept.
Great. Any discussion?
Well, I think that Councillor Butt will be a fantastic chair. She is incredibly knowledgeable, and she's always bringing new ideas to the table, and also always thinking of things from a unique angle. I think she's been a great leader in terms of providing ideas to make us function better and always thinking creatively. So I look forward to her leadership. And I think that it's part of being a great leader is being a great listener. And there's no doubt that Councillor Butt will listen to us all, and I think take all of our ideas into consideration, and making sure that our voices are all heard through the meetings. And I'm sure she's going to be taking a collaborative approach to move us forward. So I look forward to her leadership.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Councillor?
I'll just point out that I don't know, somehow this has become a situation where Councillor Butt and I are the most senior members of this body. Not the oldest members, but the most senior members, which is a pretty
the youngest
remarkable thing. Pretty remarkable thing, actually. So I wish you all the best,
Thank
going
you.
forward. And I want to also thank Madam Chair for a tremendous year this year. You have been an incredible leader, a great inspiration for all of us, and we are glad to continue to have all of your talents, on this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, we do not need a roll call vote because we are all in attendance. So all in favor of nominating Maureen Butt as chair? Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
I'm going to cede the seat to you.
Take your name tags too, so
Oh, name
people
tags.
don't get confused.
Oh. Thank you.
All I ask is that you continue the no plastic water bottle policy.
So moved. Awesome. Okay, thank you, Anne and Ed, for those kind words. Thank you, everyone. I'll talk after we take our vote, actually, for vice chair. Why don't we do that? So do I have a nomination for vice chair? Julie?
It is with great pleasure that I nominate Jonathan Chines as our vice chair.
Great, and we don't need a second, but do we have a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. And Jonathan, do you accept
I
the
do.
nomination? Great, okay, any discussion? Julie?
I just want to say a few words. As we know, Jonathan was just reelected, and I think that is not just because he's popular and out there and does tremendous amount of work, because he really proved in his first term that he has the best interests of this community at heart. All of his work on Vision 2030, with the schools, just his vision for better walkways and sidewalks, particularly around the lake, is just something that is so resonates with everyone. And I think that you will do an amazing job as vice chair and in training for chair, I hope, as well. So I look forward to serving with you for the next 2 years and serving under you as vice chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well then let's take a vote. All in favor of Jonathan Chines as vice chair? Great, 7-0. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You can stay put where you are. I think we've come up with the new orders. And I'm just going to take a chair's prerogative really quickly and just take to say a few words. I just want to thank my colleagues for choosing me as chair. I'm so excited to work together. I joked, as Councilor Dombrowski said, that we are both the deans of the council now, having been the 2 longest serving. And we've been really fortunate to work with Sherry and Steve and Tom over the last 5 years. I'm really looking forward to the positive year, continuing the great work that we've done in the past, from surviving the pandemic to voting for the new Vogue School to an amazing bond rating. Thank you, Steve, and everyone on that. And then next week at town meeting, we get to vote on our FY23 budget, which is all great things. We continue to make our town better and brighter. I'm really looking forward to working with all the members of the council on their priorities, whether it be the pit and hours at the pit, to solar panels, to roads, to sidewalks, to the lake, to an urban planner. Whatever is the priority, I'm really looking forward to working on those issues. And I'm really looking forward to a collaborative, productive year with really concise meetings. And so on that note, we're just going to move on to the next agenda item. So do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 25th?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move to accept the minutes of April 25th.
Great. And do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Discussion?
Madam Chair, I would assume I abstained from this since I wasn't here on April 25th. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. And any abstentions? Bob, Sherry, you got that? Great.
it.
Thank you. That was item 6. Item 7, Water Street. I think I'm going to turn to Town Administrator Steve Mayo to give us an update on 383 Water Street.
Sure, I am very pleased we have Attorney McGrail on, who I'm sure will take a few words, but I know that a number of councilors took a field trip to view the site, as this has been a long process, not only for the council, but for everybody involved, and I think that we ended up with a certainly much better than it was when we started this journey a while ago. We're certainly not done. We will continue to work with the homeowner, but I am happy to report as of today that the issue that was in front of the council, which was the unregistered vehicles, that I do have a letter here from our Inspector of Buildings, Ben DeCristofaro, that upon my inspection of 383 Water Street today, which is May 9th, I have verified that all the unregistered vehicles pursuant to the Town of Wakefield bylaw section 154-8 have been removed to my satisfaction. So perhaps Mr. McGrail wants to say a few words, but hopefully that'll close this chapter. And I will tell you that the homeowner is committed to continue to move forward to clean that up, and we're committed to work with him through our social services and what have you division. So thank you, and thank you to the council for their great work on this issue And maybe, Madam Chair, Mr. McGrail, if he
Yes.
wants to say a few words.
Mr. McGrail?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Brian McGrail, I represent Mr. Ulwick. I think the building inspector's letter sums up the situation. My client is now in full compliance of that order. It has taken some time over the winter months. We very much appreciate the compassion of your council in handling this matter. We're thankful to the neighbors for their patience while this whole compliance took place. I think it was the best outcome. I would like to thank once again Joe Sorianello for his efforts on the cleanup, and Joe Adagna from House Towing, because without them, this never would have happened. I mean, they put hours and hours and hours of work into this on a volunteer basis, not only themselves, but their equipment, their fuel, and I think at the end of the day, it is a very good outcome. I've made a new friend, Mr. Ulwick. I'm very appreciative of that. He's a wonderful man. I'm going to stay close with him for the rest of our lives. I'm going to work with him in an effort to help him get the property cleaned up. That is his goal. We did have a site visit today. I know we mentioned that to a few of the councilors while they were there, that he wants to keep moving forward. And even though he's in compliance, to bring other aspects of the property up to a better standard. So I will continue to work with him on that behalf as we move forward. And I guess with all due respect, I would ask that the council close this hearing because it is a public hearing, and now we are in compliance as is evidenced by the building inspector's letter, and we'd like to move on. Thank you.
Great. Do we need to make a motion to close the hearing and then have discussion after?
Yes, please. Yes.
So do you have a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move to close the public hearing with regard to the cease and desist order for 383 Water Street.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. And let's discussion. Any counselors want to add anything? Questions for Mr. McGrail, Mr. Mayo?
Madam Chair, I may just add that, again, this was before us because of the unregistered vehicles, and that's what came before us. That's what prompted all this. And I think that collaboratively with Mr. McGrail and the volunteers that he had mentioned, 128 heating and plumbing, we were able to arrive at a much better outcome than would have been the case had we just followed the letter of the law here with that. And I think for all involved, especially the neighbors that I'm also very mindful of. I was at one of the neighbors' homes today. I saw the site from his perspective, so I respect that. But I think we ended up in a much better place as a result. And when we can come up with those outcomes, I think we're doing everyone a service. And I think that's what happened here. So I understand it took longer than anticipated or expected, but the end result has landed us far better than would have otherwise been the case. And I think for that, everyone is better served.
Anyone else? Just to echo what Mr. McGrail said, and it's something that Counselor Danahy said a couple of meetings ago, that in this matter, we really needed to lead with compassion. And I think we did lead with compassion. And having a tour today, thank you, Brian, for allowing a few of us to go there with the right footwear, but to really understand what it took to get those vehicles out of there, only have licensed vehicles left. Understanding, thank you to the neighbors for your understanding that it did take a little longer. We can't really control weather in New England, but we led with compassion, and that came from Steve and Tom and public safety and building inspection. Everyone really, did their best in an unfortunate situation. So thank you all. And if
Public health.
and public health.
Really
Yes, I'm already, Coral, moving on to Linfield
Yes.
is playing hard at my heart. Yes, public health especially, that's where it started. They did the most work. So everyone and all the donations and volunteers who helped, it was really a townwide effort, and thank you. And we led with compassion, so thank you. All in favor of Jonathan's motion, say aye. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I may just add one thing, and I appreciate Council Dombrowski mentioning 128 plumbing, heating, and electric, because I omitted them because they weren't directly involved in the cleanup aspect of this for the compliance, but they did volunteer their services and materials in order to make the property habitable, the building habitable. And now Mr. Ulrich, at the young age of 77 for him, is in a position to live out the remainder of his life on that property, which was his desire. So thank you to them. And Councilor Dombrowski, thank you for mentioning them. I didn't want to omit them, so I just did want to make that statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, moving on. Item 8, we've got 2 presentations. First is the Green Communities Energy Plan. I think that will be presented with Julie and Jen Calais.
Yes. Sherry, is Myra Sessions on the call? I invited her.
No, she's not.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
great.
Kara Goodman on the call?
All right, Kara.
There is. I can bring her over.
Yeah, let's bring
Yeah.
her over. So while we're doing that, I'll just give a bit of an introduction. We presented this presentation to the school committee last Tuesday, I guess. And as you may recall, we have been working on trying to be designated a green community for about a year now. We actually do have a timeline. And just as a reminder, this is a designation program and a grant program from the state. We put together a ad hoc committee in town made up of Jen Calais, who is a Lake Department commissioner, but really has done this as a very dedicated volunteer. Representatives from the Light Department, from Town Hall with Steve, Communications, Jen, Aaron Kokinden, Economic Development, the Environmental Sustainability Committee's been involved, the DPW's been involved, and Engineering, School Facilities, and Doug. So there is not a lot of people in town who have not touched this this effort. And there are 5 criteria to be designated into the program. One is to adopt as of right siting for renewable or alternative generation R&D or manufacturing. Another is to adopt expedited permitting process. Both of those 2 we already had as part of our bylaws, and so they were checked off relatively early in the process. The third is to adopt a fuel-efficient vehicle purchase policy, which we did together with the school committee and the Light Department, which actually wasn't even required to do it, but similarly adopted that efficiency vehicle policy. And to minimize the life cost in new construction through the adoption of a stretch code, which we did at town meeting, I don't know, about a year ago, I think. So the only criteria left that we have to do is to create an energy reduction plan to reduce energy in municipal buildings. This is only municipal buildings, and we have to submit a plan and do our best to stick with it to reduce energy usage 20% in 5 years. So I realize I'm not following this very carefully. And what we will get in exchange is support from the state government in the form of a $170,000 grant upon acceptance of the program, and then awards up to $200,000 annually towards municipal energy conservation measures. And those can be anything from equipment to, I guess, vehicles. We can look at vehicles as well. The other person I failed to mention was Kara Goodman from MAPC, who has been an amazing technical support on this. So that is just that's just kind of the background to bring everybody up to speed. And so we now have to accept this energy reduction plan, and I think we're looking at June probably to submit the full application to the state. The good thing is that these used to be a fall application cycle, but they are now on a rolling basis. So we have high expectations that as soon as we are able to submit, it will move relatively quickly. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Jen Calais and Kara Goodman from MAPC, and that just goes through what I just said.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. So basically, since the last time we've seen you, we finished up on these energy scoping audits. So we had GDS, a company go into 17 different buildings in town, major municipal buildings, do energy scoping audits and come out with effectively a list of measures, savings associated with those measures, and a dollar cost, or estimate of the dollar cost for each of them. And Kara, who's on the line, went through a lot of data submitted by GDS and basically came up with some top priorities. And we discussed, what might be good priorities for the town. So some of the strategies that we're focusing on in this plan is focusing us on some of our larger and less efficient buildings. We're also focusing on buildings that have many opportunities, and we want to kind of address those in a comprehensive way. So rather than picking, a little bit of lighting at each of 17 buildings, we want to kind of do a deeper dive on a smaller number of buildings. And we also want to pair effectively an energy reduction plan, so a plan that focuses on energy equipment with the town's capital plan. So basically the town has a capital plan. Much of those measures are non-energy related. So we're going to try to align the two effectively into a comprehensive strategy. So when we go into a building to do something like fix railings or rip up rugs or flooring, we're thinking about the energy related improvements and equipment at the same time. So what we see here is effectively that plan. So we have 5 buildings in the plan. We have Town Hall, the Civic Center, the Public Safety Building, we have Woodville Elementary School, and we have the high school. And this is a rough sequence for the way we kind of see things flowing through the 5 years. So you see it starting on the left with year 1, fiscal year 23, which starts in July of this year, and going for 5 years out to the right. In the first year, we have some smaller projects. So 3 buildings with smaller amounts of savings. I'll show you some of the details in a second. The Woodville Elementary School in year 2 is a much larger project and probably a multi-year project, and then we'll conclude at the end with the high school, which is our most significant opportunity. So this is, apologize if this is small, but this is focused on the savings opportunity, so the energy savings. What we see here is the first column is the buildings, so going down, and they're arranged in the same order that we just went through, starting with the most recent, the ones that we'll address in fiscal year 23, and then going on from there. The column next to that is the MMBTU savings for each building, the projected savings. Then we have the usage for each building, and then we have a calculation of the savings as a % of the usage. So you can see for each building how deep the energy savings are, and you can see that the first 3 buildings were in the 5 to 15% range per building, and then we move on to much more significant opportunities in the 50 to 60% range. So, and all of these together total the 20% that you see at the very bottom in the total line. Really, if you take one thing away today, is that the Wakefield High School opportunity is astounding. I think it shocked all of us. I mean, it definitely shocked me, and I thought I was prepared for it, but it shocked me. It's 77% of our goal if we do it right. And so in one building, we have a huge opportunity if we really do a good job with efficiency at that building. And then the 4 other buildings comprise the remainder of that energy reduction goal. Certainly didn't want to leave out cost here, so all of this is estimates, though, I will say, and probably subject to change, but I wanted to give you a sense for what we're looking at. So we again have the buildings running down on the left-hand side. The high school's not in here because we can't receive grants from this program for the high school. So you should know that. The grants that we're receiving would be for existing buildings and not for that new building. So what we see here is the total cost. That column is projected by the auditor in terms of all the measures, and it encompasses all the measures that they recommend for each of the buildings in this case. We didn't pick and choose. We didn't cherry pick. We just said, let's do all of it in this case. So that's what it is. Next to it is an estimate of the Green Communities grants. So we have you'll see the $170,000 in the first year and the $200,000, which is the maximum for the remaining years. And then we just subtracted the 2 to say, in each year, how close are we to effectively using grant money to cover the costs of these projects? A lot of these projects, just to note, they're not new. A lot of them would have been done anyways, so it's really just doing them better. It's doing a much better job, getting more energy savings than we might have otherwise done under normal conditions. So it's really trying to push the town to really think energy and cost savings over the lifetime of these buildings. So in total, you have about $2 million of total cost. A maximum of close to $800,000 off of that, and then a remainder for the town of a little over $1 million. So that's the overarching structure of this slide. So I presented these the last time I was here, which is just wanted to give you an update. These are the energy use by building. So these are basically showing the large buildings on this side. So there's 10 buildings on this side, and the remaining 7 are on the next slide. And what you can see here is that the buildings that we're talking about are highlighted in the dashed boxes. The high school you can see is a significant use and much bigger than any other building on this chart and on the other page. I've also highlighted the public safety building, Woodville School, and the Civic Center on this slide. And this is all fiscal year 2021 data, which is our baseline year. And on this slide, you can see using the same scale that these buildings, oops. Interesting, we're flipping back and forth. Try it one more time. Yeah, there we go. The remaining buildings are much smaller than the initial 10. Wakefield has 7 schools, and those 7 schools are about 75% of the town's usage. So they really are, you really can't do this plan without touching at least 1 and probably 2 schools and doing a pretty comprehensive job on those. Going into energy efficiency, when we talk about energy efficiency, we're looking at a metric called EUI, or energy use intensity. That's just taking the total energy use and dividing by the square footage in each building. So it effectively normalizes that, the buildings, by the square footage. So again, I highlighted the 4 on this page, the 4 buildings that we're talking about, the public safety, the Civic Center, the high school, and the Woodville School, being among the top in terms of EUI. And the range for EUI is between, on this slide, 120 and 60. You'll probably get more comfortable with EUI as we talk about the high school, because you're going to start hearing some numbers, some EUI numbers, so you'll start to get those numbers in your head. And I'll present later on as we get through this on the high school EUI. And on this slide, we're seeing EUIs in the 60 to 40 range for some of these buildings. I will note that the last time we talked about the library as being a less efficient building, that has been corrected. So that is no longer the case, that the square footage was not correct in that original presentation. So that's brought it into a lower EUI and a lower energy use as well. So just going into each building quickly, and we'll run through them in the order that we saw them. So non-energy improvements planned for Town Hall. I believe this is in the summer and fall: siding, flooring, ceilings, railings, windows, smoke detectors and electrical panels at about $165,000. What came out of the audit was, again, lighting, low flow faucets, heating and cooling systems, and water heating. So for an additional $16,000, we could get a 7% energy reduction for that building if we were to do it at the same time. Public safety building, there's a project, obviously a renovation going on. If we were to look at some energy savings, additional energy savings measures in the part of the building that's not being renovated, there's an estimate for about $192,000 with a 15% reduction. I will say there's a pretty big caveat on this. So the energy audit came back with a bunch of measures. We have a renovation. Right now, the DPW is going through both of those and seeing how much of an overlap there is, what falls out of the existing scope that's planned, and what would be incremental. So we're in the process of sorting that out. The Civic Center, they're looking at doing roofing and bathrooms for about $50,000. Again, there's opportunities for lighting, weatherization, insulation, low flow water fixtures, and a heat pump water heater. Total is about, looks like $7,000. Sorry, the color's a little bit light, and a 4% energy reduction. I also made a note, this is not through Green Communities necessarily, but the DPW did indicate an interest in looking at solar PV after the roof replacement, which is really smart. So that's great. The elementary school, there weren't really actually any non-energy improvements going on there. What's actually going on there is that building was built in 2003, and most equipment, especially big equipment like heating and heating systems, cooling systems, last for about 20 to 25 years. So we're entering that period where that system, all those systems are coming to end of life. And what that means is they start to see problems. And our facilities managers have indicated there have been problems, and they're a little bit concerned. So that's a high priority to replace a bunch of equipment at that school. It's a larger project because these are larger systems. The leading system is the boiler replacement. That's most of the funds here. and then everything else is much smaller. So basically, the boiler replacement could be 1 year, and everything else could be in another. That's the kind of spacing we're thinking about for that. But that's a $2 million project and a much more significant energy reduction because it's a pretty comprehensive project as well at around 45%. The high school is a little bit different, as I mentioned, because it's new construction, but I just wanted to show you some of the stats for the existing building and then the new proposed building at this time. So the square footage is actually not all that different. 250,000 for the existing building, 260 for the new building. But the BTU per square foot, or the energy use intensity, is quite different. So currently we're at about 80 EUI. If we were to take that down to 30, which is aggressive but doable, that would be more than half, or a reduction of more than half of the current energy use, which is really significant. The absolute numbers are taking it from about 20,000 MMBTU per year down to about 8,000 MMBTU per year. And that even takes into account that the new building would have air conditioning, and I've heard the existing building doesn't. So you're adding a lot of comfort for a lot less energy, which is a huge improvement. And in addition, I've noted that there would be a solar opportunity on, again, with a new roof. So next steps in timing, basically, I've been going around with Julie and others just presenting this before anyone who will listen. So we've done the school committee. We're here tonight for town council to solicit feedback, suggestions, thoughts, comments, anything like that. Also presenting it before the WMGLD board later this week and before the Energy Sustainability Committee as well on Thursday. So with that, I'd love to open it up to questions and comments and just hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Does the person online have anything to add, or?
Kara, would you like to make any comments before we open it up?
Sure, thank you. I'm Kara Goodman with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. I'll just add a couple of quick things, which is that the good news is the grant program lasts longer than just the 5 years as well. So Jen and I have worked together and with others in Wakefield to identify some of the more pressing opportunities and some of the things that we thought would be to address in the next 5 years, but the funding will be available beyond that as well to do additional improvements, which is very exciting. So these are really just the first set of opportunities, and we hope to make improvements in more of the buildings as well as we go along with this. The auditors did identify, as Jen mentioned, a pretty comprehensive set of possibilities in basically all of the buildings have some areas that could be improved. So there are definitely more opportunities there as well. And we presented to the school committee last week, and they were very supportive, which we appreciated. We will be presenting before them again for their final approval next week, I believe. So happy to help answer any questions that come up.
Thanks, Kara. Any discussion? Go to Councilor Danahy first.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. One thing that I just noted was the energy use by building, comparing the high school to the middle school. And the high school has, the middle school has more students, I believe, than the high school. So that's pretty astounding, is that what can happen with a new building. That was pretty shocking. The other question that I had was that the Woodville School needs a lot of improvements. What about Dolbear? Because Dolbear is a little bit older, but not that much older than Woodville.
Yeah, and Kara can probably speak to this as well. Some of it is a function of there have already been improvements made.
That's what I was wondering.
So to the extent the boiler was recently replaced, it's not a candidate for a major overhaul. Right. But Kara, do you have more on that particular building?
Sure. So the Dolbear was another one we identified and is probably something we would think to add next in the plan. As Jen mentioned, we heard from the facilities staff that the Dolbear School did have their boiler replaced not too long ago. And that was really the reason that we wanted to target Woodville, is because they haven't had that boiler replaced yet. So that's a big project and a very important project to keep the building running. So that was why we identified Woodville specifically. Although we hope that we can get into Dolbear in future years and do some of the smaller projects in there as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councilor McLean?
Thanks for the presentation. One question I had is, The energy proposals that you have here for the high school, are they consistent with what is being proposed for the high school currently to the SBAB? Is it kind of in line, or is it something you're working towards?
As far as I know, yes, but Kara can probably speak a little bit more.
Yep, so those estimates are actually all directly from the folks working on that plan. So we had a call with them to make sure we understood what they were planning, what they were aiming for in terms of efficiency and whatnot, and we just used their numbers to add to our estimates.
Thank you. And no one can predict the future, but I see that you have 200,000 in the future. Do we have any feeling in terms of, how likely it is that we'll get the maximum funding if we go according to plan?
I think it's fairly likely that you will get the maximum funding, at least for the first few years. These are technically competitive grant funds from the Department of Energy Resources. However, they usually tend to prioritize towns that are newer to the program and haven't received a lot of funding yet. And these measures that we're proposing are fairly in line with the types of things they want to see. They want to fund big improvements in HVAC and things that really dig in and get a lot of energy savings, which I think we've identified. So I think the applications will be competitive, and historically towns that are new to the program get fully funded, at least for the first few years with that amount.
Thank you.
Councilor Dombrowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, all three of you. Certainly, it's very informative. Looking at the EUI, and specifically for the public safety building, is there an adjustment or an accounting for the fact that that building is in use 24/7, 365, as compared with some of the other, say like the high school, for instance, which is more dormant come summer? Because I know that on this chart, the EUI is high, but is there an accounting of the usage?
Energy use intensity as a measure does not take into account a time factor, so there isn't a way to kind of equalize that within that specific number, but we do understand that some buildings naturally have a higher energy use intensity just based on the way they're used. And the public safety building is obviously one of those that's just kind of an unavoidable thing, that it will probably continue to have a higher EUI than a similar sized building if it's being used around the clock. We are working to get updated estimates from the folks on the team doing the renovations there and the construction to make sure that we have the right estimates for the projects that they're doing and the projects that we want to propose on top of that as well.
That just seems like it jumps out to me as like an important consideration in this, because I don't think that it suggests necessarily that the public safety building in its new form will be energy inefficient, but also just the way that it's used is just different than a lot of other facilities.
I think
in
there
our
probably
portfolio.
could be a much more detailed analysis done that gets at that, but we don't have that right now.
Right.
But
Maybe
yeah,
not you guys, but just going forward, maybe that's something that's factored into the EUI, because I do think that the way in which a building is used could really impact, these ratings, which then in turn, it seems like drives the prioritization of what to do. So I think that's probably just a variable to keep in mind.
one thing to note about the MEI tool, so the Mass Energy Insight, is you can compare the energy efficiency of like buildings. So there actually is, I believe, subject to check with Kara, and I'm looking over there, that you can compare public safety buildings to one another. So that's a way that we can go and check and see where we are in that particular analysis that will help us a little bit more to see if we're outside of the range of buildings in Massachusetts.
I think that would be an interesting comparison to see. And then on the Woodville piece, Steve, I know from a capital planning side, we're talking about a couple $1 million here. When you're forecasting out, looking at these things, has that been in the mix or part of the discussion with?
We know that there are replacements that need to be done at Woodville.
Yeah.
We know that the boiler is coming. So it's in the mix. So this would help us prioritize our capital plans.
So with Dan Sherman, and when you're kind of just the longer term forecasting.
Right. And we are looking at, no promises, a 5% increase in the capital every year, because the capital planning committee always is looking at that. So yes.
So that's been taken into account. Yeah.
Yep.
And then just finally on this, I was surprised the AmeriCal only has 7,000, and in terms of improvements. The AmeriCal presents to me as a facility that I would think we could realize a lot more efficiencies just given its age. Are we that efficient with it right now that we can't realize better cost savings with an investment there? Because $7,000 and what you listed didn't seem like very much.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I can. So I haven't been to this building myself, but the things that the auditors proposed in the AmeriCall Civic Center were lighting upgrades, weatherization, including caulking and weather stripping on windows and doors, some insulation, low flow fixtures, and a heat pump water heater. So those are some significant things. One of the things that led to the low cost estimates on some of these is that they assumed some of the fixtures would be put in by existing facilities and DPW staff. So they were given that instruction to use those estimates to keep the costs low. And some of these things are very, straightforward and could easily be installed by in-house staff. So that does contribute to the lower cost. That would be, if there are additional opportunities, that would be a question we would have to check with GDS who did the audits.
It just seems like the heating loss alone in a facility like that, we would more than cover the cost of any efficiency improvements, in a short period of time. I would say undoubtedly. So I think it's something we should probably just make sure we continue to have on the radar, because that number just seems awfully low, for the opportunity I think we probably have for that facility.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Chines?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and I think more to the point, the work on this. This is not easy stuff to do, and I'm sure a lot of effort went into pulling this together. So appreciate, your time, Julie, your time, Jen, and Kara, and obviously the DPW as well. I had just a couple of budgetary questions, maybe through you, Madam Chair, to Steve. The first is around the 45,000 that we would sort of expect to come out of sort of the town funds for fiscal 2023. Is that already incorporated into the capital plan, or if not, how would we see that being funded?
Not specifically, but I think we feel in talking to Joe at DPW, these are kind of small items. We can probably squeeze that in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly next year will be much easier. Next
Well, we'll
fiscal
be
year
able to
24,
plan for
we'll be able
it,
to plan
yeah.
for it, yeah.
And to that point, I appreciate Councilor Dombrowski for mentioning this question as well. So my assumption is that if the school committee approves this plan at their next meeting, that part of their capital request for fiscal 24 and beyond would be some of these improvements to the Woodville. Is that a safe assumption?
I would hope so.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. No, obviously, I think
We'll remind them of it.
You will remind them, yeah.
Well, and I think we obviously want to make sure, as you both raised, it's important to have this included into our capital planning process, and so I just want to make sure we don't lose that thread, so that either the work doesn't get done or it gets done in a way that requires special appropriations, which we should be looking at all of this in a holistic and kind of consistent way. But thank you. I'm supportive of this. I think this is great work, and look forward to seeing the energy savings and also seeing the money flow from green communities.
I just wanted to add one thing. I think that Councilor Dombrowski's point on the AmeriCal is good, and we've actually gotten some public input from this, specifically somebody at the Dole Bear saying, this is what I observe. And so this has been really helpful because people are beginning to think about it and, kind of identify and bring things forward. So I've been really encouraged by that outcome, and hope that people will, this will raise awareness as you're in public buildings about what our efficiency is and what we might be able to do better on a personal or on a kind of a system-wide basis.
Councilor Chines?
Actually, to that point, could we do some, and maybe we could ask Jen McDonald to help with this, could we do some communication about some of these improvements as they happen? I think it's just
Sure.
a great
Oh, yeah.
opportunity to talk about, sort of everyone's tax dollars being put to good use that'll save money for the town overall, but also just lessons for all of us to use in our own homes and in our own areas.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Councilor Vincent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. It's actually the best presentation I've seen in my time on town council. I think that was pretty good. I think one of the things that bolsters your argument too is going back to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They have a green schools program because they have established sustainable green programs for all of their funds, which would include the high school. And the reason that's relevant, especially looking at the savings that you showed for the high school, is because we can get additional reimbursement points if we satisfy the green schools aspect of the MSBA program. So I think that helps bolster your argument as well.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilor Dennehy?
Well, this is kind of not directly related, but I think that this is really exciting and it's very important to make our buildings more energy efficient. And we do have a lot of new buildings coming about. And this is one thing that I'm like, can we require that new buildings meet certain standards around energy efficiency that we put in place as a municipality?
So you're saying private buildings?
Private buildings.
That's
Could
essentially
we-
what we did with the stretch code,
Okay.
for a certain segment of them, right?
Yes,
So what is the stretch code? So,
I'm gonna let
okay.
Sure.
explain that.
Yeah, so
Energy
this,
analyst by training.
no, I mean, basically it applies to new buildings and essentially requires, so the current codes are not necessarily focused on energy savings or solely focused on energy savings. So the stretch code is actually a stretch energy code with a focus on energy efficiency. So it basically takes it beyond current code for certain measures that apply to energy. So that's in a nutshell what it is. I will say, in addition to that, there's other things that towns can do and have done. So specific to our town being a municipal electric and gas company, we have a natural gas moratorium for new buildings. So all of the new multifamily buildings that have been built or will be built in the past or in the future are all going to be all electric buildings. They are not going to be running on fossil fuels. So over time, as that electricity portfolio gets cleaner, those buildings will become cleaner and eventually will become very clean. So that was probably, I think, the most important thing that the WMGLD board has ever done or may ever do because of the number of new buildings that are being built right now. And that's multifamily focused. We are having a conversation about whether to extend that to single family new homes. In addition to that, you can do solar-ready policies, you can do EV-ready policies, you can do net zero policies, so there's a lot of additional stringency that a town can elect to put on its new buildings. So, yes.
Thank you. That's great to know. Thank you.
And the Environmental Sustainability Committee has begun looking at things like EV-ready and solar-ready.
Excellent.
This was great. I'm just going to add a couple of comments based on what Councilor Chines said, Steve. I think our upcoming tri-board meeting, whenever that happens, is actually a good place to have the conversation about capital projects, FinCom, as Councilor Dombrowski said, the buildings and us, so kind of maybe, even a little presentation. I forget when that usually happens, but I know sometime in the next October. There we go. So a great time. And then none of our favorite subject, but is this one of the carrots that was mentioned in 40A, that if you don't participate, they'll take away this money?
This was not specifically mentioned.
Okay.
However, there's that caveat in there that or other grant programs.
Got it. Yep, I just couldn't remember if this was one. And then just a little clarification of the timeline. So you're soliciting feedback. Who should feedback go to in early May?
You can send it to myself. I will take the feedback.
That sounds great. So, and then final review, and we apply to the green communities. So that comes back here for a vote. I know you said you're going back to schools. Does it come back here as well?
We're going back to schools because they have a policy where you have to table something and they wait 2 weeks.
Oh.
We could actually, if people are comfortable, we could vote today on this energy plan, and then we wouldn't have to come back, or we can come back as a formality and do that. But my understanding is we could vote today, and that would, from a town council, would be clear to make that application.
Okay. What do people prefer or think? People feel confident voting right now?
I mean, I think essentially what has to happen is we'll give you permission or Steve permission, I can't recall which, to sign the grant application. Because for schools, they have to give the superintendent permission to sign the application.
Yeah, Councilor Chines?
So I guess to that end, I would move that the council accept the, draft energy reduction plan as presented and authorize the town administrator to sign any certifications on behalf of the community.
That's great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Counselor
Just
Tynes.
one piece of discussion too. I would say, I make this motion not to suggest that any of the work that we need to do to kind of tie up the loose ends for the public safety building or address Councilor Dombrowski's question about the AmeriCall. I certainly think there's still more work to do there. But I present the motion just because as a framework for, I think, where we're going, understanding that there's still work to do on those ends. I think this is the right framework. I think the analysis you've done is solid, and I think it makes sense to move forward.
Yeah, this is great.
And I'll just add that it is a framework. I mean, so over the next 5 years, we're going to be looking at different, plus, minuses. So this is not set in stone.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think also to your earlier point, I think when you opened up, Councilor Smith-Galvin, we voted on this already at town meeting, and so this is one of the components
Yes.
of being a green community, to have this plan put into place. So,
Yes.
right, I mean, so I don't want to call it a formality, certainly, because there is some discretion, obviously, but I think it's important that everyone understand that this is, well, not just a requirement based on the vote of town meeting, but also the framework piece, I think, is important, because if we can recognize better efficiencies in different ways, I'd like everyone to be open to that, too. Thank you.
If I could ask for one caveat, in case, and I forget who signs it, whether it's the chair of the council or the town administrator, either or, I think that's fine with your motion, Jonathan.
Yes.
Thank you. Just in case.
Okay.
So I'll
do you need-
consider
Yeah.
my motion amended to
Okay.
say we'd authorize either the town administrator or the chair of the town council
I just
as appropriate.
forget which one. off the
That's
top of my head.
okay. No, this was great. So thank you so much, everyone who worked on this. So we have a motion. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jen
May I-
and Kara and
Thank you,
Julie.
Jen.
Is it possible for me to provide some additional information from the last presentation, not related to this, but related to solar on one of our buildings? For
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski. So I just wanted to get back to you with information. You asked on the Broadway solar installation, can you give us some better, numbers about cost savings and things like that? So I have some numbers here today that we've saved about $4,500 to date in energy costs with that rather small, actually, solar install. It's about 1 or 2 homes in size. And about 30% of that has been through energy that was used directly by the building, and 70% through energy sold back to the grid to be used by others. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Item 8B, Fit Court. I think Dan McGrath will be joining us.
Wait, I'll jump in and give him kudos and he can talk about it. So Dan, working collaboratively with Judah Luciano and with Catherine Dingra, they applied for a grant actually through Blue Cross Blue Shield, which I think was kind of funny when they told me about it, because we basically said goodbye to Blue Cross Blue Shield in 2012 to go into the GIC. But that was another story, so I figured they're probably going to see that and say, forget it. But they worked great together, and they highlighted the fact that Wakefield and the council in particular voted, and working with the Council on Aging, that we're talking about an age-friendly community. We're trying to do projects and programs that really benefit all ages. And so that was a big part of the grant application. It was really great to see that in the grant application, and brought us really, and they told us, right to the top of the heap because of the commitment that we've made to that. So the Fit Court, which Dan can describe much better than I can, came out of that, but it was a really great job by the three of them, and really kind of thinking outside the box, and let's go this way to make our application a little bit better. So great job by you and your team on that.
Thank you.
Dan. Appreciate it. So now we can talk about the fun stuff.
Yeah. So, Bob, this isn't going to be as good as the last presentation, I
It's
promise
okay.
you. But I'll take silver. Silver's fine. So, yeah, we are now enrolled to be able to qualify for a $50,000 grant through Blue Cross Blue Shield and the National Fitness Campaign. Now, technically, I'm not supposed to be talking about this publicly because there's certain language that I need to be able to use when we go public with it, but I need to come to this body to get some information from you guys and get some support. So here we are. So I had an online meeting with National Fitness Campaign in early March to see if we were a fit for what they wanted to do. we talked about it. I brought up a couple of places where we could do this, and Moulton Park's the one that we kind of fell on, and they were excited about the possibilities. And they said, okay, go back to your leadership and see what they say. And so I ran to Steve, I ran to Judy, I ran to Catherine, Kara Showers, and just said, hey, what do you guys think about this? And their support was overwhelming and quick. So hopped on another call with the National Fitness Campaign, and they said, all right, great, you guys fit the criteria that we're looking for. Let's get you into the grant portal. So they sent us the grant application. Thankfully, Kara Showers, Catherine Dingra, and Erin Kokinda took that right from me, ran with it, and made it what it was. And the age-friendly component is the selling point for this. The proximity to the senior center, the walkability of the neighborhood, the parking element, it's all there. So they really love that part of it. So we put in, and they told me it would be about 14 days. 28 days later, I'm finding out where our status is, and coincidentally, they were meeting that night. 2 days later, I got notice that we were going to be eligible for this grant, which is exciting to us. So they have given us kind of an aggressive time frame. So I was on an awards call on April 26th. I am having another conversation with them tomorrow where we need a letter of support or a declaration of support from this body for this fitness court, because there is more financials to this. It's not just $50,000 built, cut, and dry. We need to contribute more money towards it. And then there's more aspects to it. So kind of giving you time frame of it. So if we're able to get the support and able to go to send them tomorrow with, here we are, we then need to confirm the funding with them on or about May 24th. Equipment would be delivered about 14 to 21 days later. We're looking to install concrete sometime in June, looking to have the court installed sometime in July, and we're looking to open this in August. So this is moving very fast, and quite honestly, we can even accelerate it because I think the ability to do that is there. So the fitness court is a 38 by 38 concrete slab. So it's about a half of a basketball court or a tennis court. And the court itself is a 32 by 35 foot body weight circuit training system. So there's certain elements in there. It has 30 pieces of fitness elements. There's 28 users can be on this area at one time. It has 7 functional fitness zones, 1 for core, squat, push, lunge, pull, agility, and bend. And there's 7-minute workouts. So within all of this, on your phone, you can download their app. And their app shows you how to use all of each component. I actually downloaded it this morning. It's quite interesting. It has from beginners to intermediates to advanced. And it will have special ops training. It will have just regular general training. It has interval training. So it has a bunch of different components that are very cool and for users of all abilities. It's made for all climates. There's no moving parts or almost no moving parts, a few cables. So there's no requirement to disassemble it for the winter time. It can stay up, and it's very low maintenance. That's one of the big keys to it. Like I said, they have a great app. It offers workouts and classes on your phone. Videos can teach beginners to advanced, and there's challenges within that too for competitive training. So people who want to compete against other people who have fitness courts in their communities can do that. It also offers certified ambassador training, up to 12 people. So we can pick 12 people within the community, within our fitness community, who want to get training in this, and then they can go down there and teach classes. And I think that would be a great way for us to be able to reach out to our local gyms, trainers, whatever, boot camps, and say, hey, who wants to participate in this? Run some clinics for us, and then also bring a new clientele to your gyms. So there's a lot of neat stuff to this. And I think we're blessed to be one of the communities that was selected. The nearest ones are in Everett and Burlington. So for us having that here, I think it's a cool thing. Moulton Park can definitely use some love, especially down by that tennis court area. It's a kind of a blighted area that hasn't been touched in a long time. And I think this could be a nice boost to that area. So I'm open to any and all questions.
Thank you so much, Councilor Dombrowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
This is great, Dan. Thank you for this. I think the dodgeball training center, I mean, fit court makes a lot of sense. Could you maybe just talk a little bit about where specifically, like in Moulton Park, we're talking for the
So
location of this?
We've kind of batted that around a little bit, and Steve and I are going to meet with Bill Spalding, who's actually backs up right to the park there to kind of go
And
over
others, yeah.
where we can best fit it. I think that, me personally, I think that tennis court area is a great place to start, but maybe we're moving to the basketball court or somewhere around there. There's a lot of opportunity there because there's a lot of open space.
That corner kind of behind the baseball field.
Right.
Right across from the West Side Social
Side,
Club.
yeah.
Right across there, you have an old dilapidated tennis court. It's not even used for tennis anymore. It's street hockey at this point. On the other side of that is an old basketball court. But there is other space in there, and that really, and going there the other day, could be a great complex, you know, with this being maybe the anchor of it. You know, you could have some competitive sports and some individual type sports and what have you. So I think this is great. I think there was a great job by Dan. And I do think that when I think about because my suggestion, my recommendation would be to use ARPA funds for this, is how do you stretch our ARPA funds? And we talk about, you know, we have this in ARPA funds, here's another grant. So that takes, you know, we're kind of, our local match is that, we're getting this and we're making, you know, using that to make a real impact in the neighborhood. And you may recall, when we talked about the ARPA funds, outdoor recreation areas was one of the top items that the community wanted when we did our surveys. And to me, this is great, and maybe there'll be another one or something similar on the other side of town. But let's start here and in that area. And that could be a real nice little complex in that area. And like Dan said, just needs a little bit of love, and maybe we can do something with the other areas. So I'm more interested in maybe finding a spot to kind of put this in, tuck this in there, that's not being used for something else, and maintain those other areas for other uses. So that's what we'll be doing when we talk to the neighborhood.
I just think it's really important that, you know, the idea of when you hear Moulton Park, you think green space, and we don't want to be taking green space, certainly. So to the extent we can make better use of what's already.
And it's already in a corner that's already kind of
right. That's what I'm
used up
getting
with
at.
this
So we
stuff.
can, as long as we're doing that, I think that's just important to consider. Thanks.
Victor's going to use it on his way home. That's right.
There's a sausage crack going.
Yes.
Counselor Smith-Galvin?
Congratulations on this. I looked at this when it came through MMA, and I thought, this is a heck of a grant. I don't even think I sent a note because I thought this would be really, really hard to win. And you guys figured it out and pulled it off. And so I'm so impressed. It was not an easy process. And I really think it's going to be a great asset for the community.
Especially coming out of a pandemic.
Yeah. I'm really, really impressed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Chines?
No, you know, I echo that as well. You know, I've noticed the one in Burlington a couple of times just driving past Leahy, and I remember the first time I saw it, I said, that would be incredible to have something like that in Wakefield, and so to see the grant come to fruition is terrific. I love the idea that this is something that would create an opportunity for people to you know, access fitness equipment in a way that doesn't cost them any money. You know, I think promoting healthy living among everyone is a worthy goal for the town. I love the fact that it's something that can scale to all abilities and is an accessible piece of equipment. You know, that's something else we've talked about in this council is something that's important to us as we think about our recreational assets. You know, and I love the fact that, you know, as we're talking about Moulton and as we're talking about an expanse of blacktop that really isn't used, that it does give us an opportunity to kind of reuse something that maybe is as you charitably put, in need of a little bit of love. So I'm supportive of moving forward. I see this as an appropriate use of ARPA funds, just given all the boxes that it checks in terms of an outdoor amenity, something that is accessible to the community, and something that makes sure that you know, all of us who maybe gained a little bit of weight and you know, perhaps didn't fare as well during particularly the first year of the pandemic could use if we ever find ourselves in that situation again. So I'm very happy to move forward on this.
I just want to comment, I think for the first time in a long time, we are like a running marathon majority council, myself excluded, but looking at everyone else, there are a lot of runners who will, I'm sure, use that outdoor space. So, Councillor Denny.
Yes. Well, I wanted to echo everything that Jonathan said, but I did have a question is, what's the lifetime expectancy of this equipment?
So everything's guaranteed lifetime warranty on it. Now, there might be little parts that we need to purchase here or there. But like I said, they're weather resistant, it's very low
Wow.
maintenance.
Wow.
It's not like a playground where we need to go and check swings and make sure that, they're safe. And this is one of those things, it's gonna last us, and it's
Wow.
gonna last a long time.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
So I have a youth on my street who's been asking for street hockey. Do they play a lot of street? Are we taking something away that's being used if we do use that?
We don't have to. We may use another area there, but they do use that for street.
Okay, no, I just want
Yeah.
to make sure that we're not replacing
Right.
it without
We
thinking
used to-
about the current use of that. I'm looking because Jonathan.
We used to offer a street hockey program there during the summer, kind of to compete with to offset our blacktop basketball program.
Yeah.
And numbers weren't huge, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean that it's not when we weren't using it. I know the space is known as the street hockey area in town.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was just kind of coming back to me. So I just asked that we
Yep.
think about.
Right. I think we think about it, there's some other areas over there.
I mean, there's a lot of space
that
there,
there's a lot
so
of
it may
space.
not be an
could be
issue.
used,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Great. And the one thing that I just want to add, thank you so much for this, Dan and Steve. And that's really great, Julie, that you didn't think we'd have a shot and then we got it. So that's great to know. And I'm all about finding money and then, finding money to build something. You mentioned that there's going to be an app. And I would love, as we have a new Council on Aging director now, Karen, you worked with Judy on this, but now that we have Karen,
Yep.
how do we do some trainings for seniors who don't have smartphones? Like, do we,
So one
can you
thing
rent
is
smartphones from the library? Like, I would love to think about educating on that population, especially.
So Judy and I talked about that actually at her retirement. So I said, Judy, we got this, what can we do? And one of the things was, well, let's get her people trained down there, and they can do classes with the people down there, so they'll learn how to use the equipment safely.
Yeah.
And then that's a no-brainer on my end.
That's great.
Again,
yeah.
the age-friendly component, we want to keep that going.
Yeah, because I think when I think about residents in our town that are senior, not everyone has a smartphone.
Yep.
Not everyone feels really comfortable, but I feel like they're eager to learn.
Yep.
And so if we can make those opportunities and do some collaboration, which is before a pandemic, I felt like we were
there.
Senior Center was somewhere we were talking about community gardens,
Yep.
like how can we incorporate more recs with our Council on Aging?
Yep.
So continue that collaboration.
100%.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments about the Fit Court?
So if we could get a motion to proceed with up to $100,000 of ARPA funds being used, that'd be great.
So, Madam Chair, move to accept the proposal to proceed with the fitness court and authorize the use of approximately, or we'll say up to $100,000 of ARPA funding to meet the town's share of the cost.
Great, we have a motion. Do we have-
Second.
Seconded by Julie. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dan.
guys. Good
job.
Well, I'm going to use chair prerogative while I have you here. Can you give us an update on the pickleball courts, please?
So I have heard they will be open this summer.
Okay.
That's as far as I have information-wise. All I know is it looks much better right now. I'm excited to see that.
Making sure it's very level for you, Marie. 'cause
I'm
you don't want to have any
you and
excuses.
I
know.
First
They're
tournament.
stalling because my knee will be better later.
I think it's not dodgeball anymore. It might be pickleball moving forward.
easier
So
sport.
Well, and the school committee challenged us to softball when I was with them last week. So we have lots of
We
options.
carefully
here.
avoided that, didn't we?
great. Thank you so
Thank you, guys.
much,
Appreciate it.
Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, item 9, public hearing. We need to set a public hearing for June 27th at 7:03 p.m. to set the fiscal year 2023 water and sewer rates.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I was thinking 7:04, but if you guys are that way, 7:03. Whichever is fine.
Let's keep 7:03 so Sherry doesn't have to do more work. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Great, thank you. Item 10, license agreements and policies. 10A, a request from House Beer Brewing to sell wine at the farmer market from June 18th to October 29th, 2022. And I believe Chief Scory, hello Chief Scory.
How are you?
It is, I just want to say it is very nice to see people in this room again.
I want to check if anybody's on from.
Is anyone from House Beer Brewing on, Sherry?
Yeah, she is, Beth is, and she should be, I think she is on the screen. You guys hear me?
Oh, we can hear.
We can hear, we
Very
can't,
faintly, Beth.
we can't see her yet.
Beth, can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very faintly. Are you going to turn on your video?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Great.
You see me now?
Yes,
We can.
hello, thank you, Beth. Steve, do you just want to give us a little summary?
Sure. We have two farmers market liquor licenses in front of us this morning, one of which is House Beer Brewing, which is here, which is a new vendor at the farmers market, and the second one is Aronap, which has been there for many years. Both, I believe, from their application, will be selling wine at the market, and House Beer Brewing, again, their first year, and they have requested not only to sell their product, but also to have tastings. And I know the police chief wants to speak to that at some point, as do I, and I do support what he's going to say. And Aronap does not wish to have tastings, and haven't for the history being there. So I think that's farmers market. We all love it. It's great. The vendors are fabulous, and they're great. I think there is some concern that we have about the tasting aspect of it, and I'll turn it over to the chief, if you don't mind.
Thank you. So at an agricultural event, Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 15F, allows a wine vendor to give up to 5 one-ounce samples to one individual. So 5 one-ounce samples of wine would equal one drink, which may not seem like a big issue, but if we have multiple vendors that are requesting to do sampling at the farmer's market, the same person could have multiple drinks. I think that our farmer's market is a family affair. It has a family atmosphere. I don't think it's the right environment for people to be serving alcohol, especially where the farmer's market's on a Saturday. It's at Hall Park. The lake is there. We have people jogging, walking, biking. I just don't think it's the right place for people to consume alcohol and then get into a car and drive away. I think it's a perfect venue to shop, buy the products you like, but I don't think it's the right environment for the consumption of alcohol. And I noticed on the application from this vendor that they were requesting to do sampling. And once I found that out, I contacted Mr. Mayo, and I asked to be able to come here tonight and speak my opinion on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Steve, do you want to add anything?
No, I support the chief, and I think that it's important to note that we've had a very successful farmers market. We have had Aronap there for a number of years, and they have not had a sampling license, and I don't know why we'd want to change right now, personally.
Great. Any discussion? Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, you cited that Massachusetts general law that's been in effect since 2010. In any time in the 12 years since it was enacted, has Wakefield ever authorized wine tasting at the farmer's market?
To my knowledge, no.
All right, thank you.
Beth, why don't we see if the councillors have questions, and then I'll come to you. Is that okay?
Sure.
Great. Councillor Dombrowski?
I would say, first, welcome to the farmers market. I think that we really have a fantastic farmers market. We really do. I was actually speaking with the Melrose Farmers Market folks over the weekend, and I think we're still the envy of the community. But I agree with Chief on this one. I think that Aronap has done very good in terms of their sales. That's why they come back every year to the market, and they've not had samples. I agree. This is a family-friendly environment. There are kids running around, there's music playing, and it just doesn't feel necessary. I don't think we should be changing the character of what the farmers market is doing for one vendor. And I think we already have a track record with the other alcohol vendor to show that you can be successful and you can sell product without having samples. And I am concerned about people coming because it's right there too. Some people walking the lake, people kind of jumping in and seeing, and then, I mean, there's a whole host of issues with, like underage, kids underage, or people who may be drinking beforehand, or any number of things. And like, why do we want to create that situation for ourselves if we don't have to? I don't think we need it. I think we have a proven record of showing you can sell without doing it. And so, respectfully, I wish you the best of luck, but I don't think that the sampling needs to be a part of this equation to make that work.
Any other question or comments from counselors?
Just a question, is it beer or wine that you are thinking of sampling? Offering a sample?
Here out at farmers markets, we make mead and cider, which is legally a wine.
Okay,
It
thank
is
you.
brewed, and so our name is House Bear Brewing.
Got it. That's confusing, thank you.
Counselor McLean?
I walk down sometimes, Chief, so I could find my way back up the hill without worrying about it, but certainly the traffic down there too is really, really congested at that time with all the traffic we get for the farmer's market. So, yeah, I don't think introducing the tasting testing at that point in time would be a particularly good idea. And I wish people would stop taking that right on red when I'm trying to cross the street. But anyway, I agree.
I think you just brought up a matter not on the agenda for a future meeting,
Yes.
Counselor. So we will talk about
I'm always
that.
doing that. I'm
But-
sorry.
Yes, we will add that to traffic advisory agenda.
There's a sign, don't turn.
Anyone else? Okay, well, welcome, Beth. Thank you for coming on. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about House Bear Brewing?
Sure. So my partner Carl and I make mead and cider in Newburyport. We've been in business since 2013. We're the most medaled meadery in Massachusetts. We have 3 gold medals, 2 silver medals, 2 bronze medals. We make dry mead and dry cider, which means it's less sweet. We also do session meads and ciders, so lower alcohol meads and ciders as well. When we do tastings at farmers markets, and we don't always do tastings at farmers markets, but we do request it generally. When we do tastings, it's 1/4 of an ounce a piece, because it would not be financially feasible for us to do 1 ounce pours for every flavor for every person. That would just ruin us. But it doesn't make any sense. You don't need to have an ounce of something to be able to taste it and decide whether or not you want to buy it. But I totally understand your concerns, and if, sampling at the farmer's market is something that concerns you, we're completely fine with not doing it as well. And when customers ask us, we can just say that we can't pour. That's totally okay. We've been doing farmers markets since 2014. We're at 11 different farmers markets this summer, as we were last summer as well. And we're very excited to be in Wakefield. And we're happy to be there whether we're doing samples or not.
Well, thank you so much. What a great business, and thank you for traveling south and joining us in Wakefield. It sounds like you're really successful, and you will be successful at the farmers market.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, I was just writing down the date. You will see many of us there every Saturday. So you will recognize all our faces. Some of us bike there, some of us walk there, some of us drive there. So you will see all of us. So it sounds like we all kind of support the chief's recommendation of not allowing sampling at the farmers market. Do we need to take
I think when you grant the license without the sampling.
Got it. Okay. So do I have a motion?
Yes, move to grant a liquor license to House Bear Brewing to sell wine at the farmers market from June 18th to October 29th, 2022, subject to restriction that sampling would not be permitted.
Second. Great. Any discussion? Great. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you. Unanimous, Sherry. Thank you, Beth. We'll see you June 18th.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
Good luck.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. And then item 10B is the request from Aeronap to sell wine at the farmer's market from June 18th to October 29th, 2022.
Move to grant Aeronap a license to sell wine at the farmer's market from June 18th through October 29th, 2022,
With no sampling.
with no sampling.
With
Thank you.
no sampling.
to request it.
Yes. A second?
Second, sorry.
Second, thank you, Julie. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Great, thank you. Item 10C, intermunicipal agreement. Hello, Victor.
Hello, folks.
I know.
I feel like
I
I'm stayed after school.
Counselor Smith-Galvin made the agenda, so we can blame her.
Oh, selling me out.
But we were saving a better presentation for Counselor Vincent,
That's
so
true.
here we go. Steve, do you want to start?
I can jump in here. As the council knows, we have a number of intermunicipal agreements with our neighbors. We've had them for health, we have them for animal control. We actually have one right now for assessing. We have one with Reading, and that's gone very well over the last, how many years now?
Decade.
Decade, yeah, about 10 years now. And people seek us out because I think that, seek us out because, in this case, because Victor does great work and it makes sense for the different communities. So Linfield reached out to me and they said, can we talk about sharing the assessor? We need to move in a different direction. And they actually voted at 6 o'clock tonight to go forward, if I'm not mistaken. So whenever I put these IMAs together, I look at them as that we want to be, make sure that we can handle it. We don't want to lose quality that we have. And Victor and I have had a lot of conversations about this and about Reading, and he's very confident that we can certainly move forward. There aren't a lot of parcels in Linfield. There's, give you an idea, there's 10,000 parcels in Wakefield. There's only 4,600 in Linfield, and of those 4,600 in Linfield, only 137 of them are commercial. So that's a very minor area. But when you combine the three communities, you end up with about 24,000 parcels. Victor feels that this is something he can certainly do, can certainly do, not easily. It will take some more hours on his part, but he's ready for the challenge. So I present to you a intermunicipal agreement that has kind of a bifurcated way of looking at how we're handling the payments. So you'll notice in the beginning that Linfield will pay 28%, is that it? 28% of the salary cost, although that they have about 19% of the parcels, okay? Reading will pay 36% and Wakefield will pay 36%. And I think that that's very fair, considering that we will be doing more of the management here. I also will say that Victor volunteers to a lot of committees. He's on employee review committees for us and what have you. So the kind of day-to-day stuff, Victor is involved a lot in here. The other area that we're looking at is, what you be very careful with these intermunicipal agreements, is you can't just say, I'm going to look at the salary. You've got to look at the other benefits, including post-employment, okay? And so on the benefits, we're looking at a 40-40-20 split, which I think is actually exactly the way the parcels are. And that's very fair. And then that's more long-term, and most of it will be after, Victor's retired anyway. It's very important that we get that retirement piece, for Victor's salary from the other communities, not just Victor's or anybody we do it. That's in every municipal agreement we have. Tom Mullen has been great about drafting these. It's really basically the same language we have with Reading that we have with Melrose on the other end. So it's a well-run agreement. I think that Victor is certainly up for the challenge, and I think that they'll be very, very happy in Linfield because of the fine job that he does. And I think that also important in here is the caveat that if for some reason it doesn't work, okay, more so because I think if Victor feels that it's just too much for him to handle. We certainly have a way, like any of these agreements, to get out with a 30-day notice, okay? Victor will remain, or the position will remain a Wakefield employee, and will manage it through our system. So I think it's great. I think the council challenges me to find ways that we can deliver services and save money. This will actually save us a little over $11,000 a year, which is nice, just not chump change. And I was thinking the other day, if we did not do the agreement at all, if we never had an agreement in this area, that we're probably, the delta's probably about $80,000 a year. So it's a really good deal for the town, I think, and it's a great deal for Victor, and more people get his expertise, which is important too. And I don't know, that's it to start, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. Victor, do you want to add anything?
It's certainly going to be a challenge. The questions I get now, where are you going to be, when are you going to be, are all the same questions I got a decade ago. And no issues really materialized. Although getting a bit older, I do have difficulty retaining tax rates in my head. So when it's recap time, it's critical I focus on one town at a time until rates are approved. Other than that, the work is the same. It's done very calendar driven. I have the incredible support of my superiors, the various boards I work with, and more importantly, in Wakefield, the most talented staff ever. In Reading, a good staff, and I'm looking forward to working with the folks in Linfield. So.
Any questions, discussion? Counselor McLean?
Victor, will it be, I know you spent a couple days in Reading per week now, is it kind of going to shift to like a 2-2-1, or will you be doing Linfield out of Wakefield, or how do you see that working out?
I'd like to take the fifth on the grounds I don't want to incriminate myself. Because it's very calendar driven, it does take coordination with staff. I could be doing a sales review in one community for 3 days straight. It's just the way the calendar falls, the way the workload falls. But during times like that, I'm in constant communication with my offices, reply to every text, reply to every email, answer every phone call. It doesn't work unless, I do it that way. So keeping score on a weekly basis doesn't work. What works is on a monthly basis, have I accomplished the necessary assessing tasks for the communities that I'm in?
Right,
And
so it's
that-
not a,
Yeah.
it's not a set schedule type of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Any other questions? Counselor Chines?
Thank you. Just a question in terms of your staff. Do you foresee any impact on kind of their workload or time, or any shifts that you would anticipate in terms of the responsibilities for your team here in Wakefield?
Slightly, just in Wakefield, they're top flight. Kirsten and Scott are just fantastic. I couldn't do any of this without them at my side. The only thing is, instead of yelling at me in my office, they can pick up the phone and yell at me for something I did do or forgot to do. But no tremendous workload shift or anything like that, because as I said, they're already fantastic to begin
you
with.
certainly have a great staff in Town Hall, so that's definitely a compliment both to them and to you as the leader there. All right, thank you.
And there is no sharing with staff.
Yep.
And there are 3 separate boards of assessors, so that's all separate.
To which we say good luck, Victor.
Yes.
If I could clone my Wakefield staff, this would be a snap.
We do want to reiterate, you have great staff, and I hope you have a favorite council. But that,
Well, hey, let's
Can't
run the
please.
tape.
Counselor Vincent?
Madam Chair, it was hard for me to disguise my enthusiasm when I got to read a contract. So I do have a few questions. The town council signs, every member of the town council signs this agreement, if you look at the last page. So who has the authority to review it annually, and who has the authority to terminate the contract, that 30-day provision? Is that have to be done by the town council, or is that delegated to the town administrator?
The termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the termination would have to be done by the town council. And, you know, the under Chapter 40, Section 4A, the town council, the Board of Selectmen in most towns, has to approve any such agreement. You can actually approve for a term of up to 20 years. So we chose 3 years here because it's fairly typical and it's a good review opportunity. But there would not typically be an annual review. You don't need that.
All right, thank you.
Great, Councilor Dombrowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Victor, thanks for taking this on. As I understand it, you're going to look at Linfield in that office to try to make sure that you're best supported, right?
Yes.
So that going forward, you're going to be able to try to replicate as best you can what you have in Wakefield and Reading, so that Linfield doesn't become a drain, basically.
I was over in Linfield Friday morning to meet some folks. Not one customer came to the office, so that bolsters my confidence that it's pretty well to handle. Obviously, during times when we send out excise bills, which we know people love, I'm going to be there a little bit more to handle concerns and phone calls and stuff like that. But the other stuff, the assessing, the technical side, that's all rather with me perfunctory. That's how I operate.
The only thing I know, and you and I spoke with us previously, the only thing that concerned me is just to make sure that you had the same level of support in that community so that you weren't having to, spread yourself too thin in that way and, lose some of the value that you have here. I think also the 137 commercial properties, I think is kind of a cautionary tale for Linfield too, because their commercial tax base is not like we have in our community or other communities, and then that really falls on, then it's residential that picks up the slack there. So I think that, as we're talking about development going forward, that we have to be ever mindful of the kind of impact that has across town if you convert a commercial site into a residential one. And then finally, I noticed the mileage reimbursement. I'm assuming you're going to put all that through Linfield and not Wakefield, right?
Yes, when I submit for 3,000 miles in Wakefield, they won't say anything.
Fair enough. They won't even notice.
No, not at all.
I'm kidding, obviously.
For the record, I didn't hear anything.
Councilor Smith-Galvin?
And I think it is interesting, it is such a small commercial base, but is most of that Market Street, and does that present any, are there any big issues that you foresee there that would take more time?
Here's your value, pay the bill. It's
Okay.
pretty much the
Perfect.
approach.
Okay.
The only wrangling might be some auto dealerships on Route 1, but we have large auto dealerships both in Wakefield and Reading
So
who are sufficiently
very-
intimidated by my visage, so.
That's great. Any other comments, questions? So do we have a motion?
We do. Move to accept the intermunicipal agreement for the Director of Assessments as proposed.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Great, thank you. And
Thank you,
Counselor-
Victor.
Yeah, thank you, Victor.
Thank you for your trust and
Thank
faith.
you.
Thanks.
And do we have the contract to go around?
We do, but I think let Linfield do it, and we'll send it around DocuSign.
Perfect.
If that's okay. Yeah.
Great, okay.
We're very electronic now.
That's great. I was hoping Counselor Vincent would be able to sign today, but he'll electronically do it. Okay, item 10D, flag policy update. Can I go to Council Mullins?
Yeah. Madam Chair, we were waiting for a decision from the U.S. Supreme Court in the Shurtleff v. Boston case, and we got one. Let me surprise you a little by saying Shurtleff is the best news I've ever seen coming out of a municipal defeat. Okay? I, at least, and I think most of you, had worried about what the decision might mean for the ability of the town to take sides on substantive issues. If we raised the Black Lives Matter banner, would we also have to hoist the Confederate flag? But Shurtleff unequivocally says, we, by which I mean you, can take sides on such issues without having to commit town resources to the opposition. The restraint on your discretion being entirely political and not legal, by which I mean you risk getting voted out of office if you go too far. Still, it was a municipal defeat, so let me explain. There are 3 flagpoles in front of Boston City Hall. One always flies the American flag, one always flies the state flag, and the third usually flies the city flag, but not always. Boston allowed the third pole to be used by any group that reserved City Hall Plaza. And Boston conceded City Hall Plaza was a public forum. The flags permitted over the course of many years included a number of national flags, the gay pride flag, a flag for an emergency medical technician group, and even one for a local bank. The city, in fact, never refused to raise a flag until the Shurtleff case. Mr. Shurtleff was an individual who ran an organization called Camp Constitution. He asked to raise a flag that he called the Christian flag to commemorate the contributions of the Christian community. Boston said no, because they were worried that it would run afoul of what's called the Establishment Clause, which is the part of the First Amendment that says government cannot recognize the establishment of a religion. Let me pause and say parenthetically that I am terribly sympathetic to the Boston officials whose decision was later held by a unanimous Supreme Court to have been unconstitutional. If this situation had arisen in Wakefield, I probably would have advised you that we can't use public property to endorse one religion or any religion or all religions. And I wouldn't have been alone, because Boston won in the district court at trial, and Boston won in the first appeal to the First Circuit Court of Appeals. But the Supreme Court held unanimously that Boston had effectively used its third flagpole as a public forum, and in doing so, the city had committed itself to accept all applicants, regardless whether they sought to advance a message that was religious or otherwise. So the reason I'm heartened by Shurtleff is that the opinion clearly says that Boston can avoid its legal problems going forward simply by adopting a new policy. It could clearly declare that the third flagpole is not a public forum, that it is used exclusively as an organ of government speech. The court said Boston may use the flagpole to advance such causes as the city chose to endorse. And it specifically mentioned the gay pride flag as one that could be raised to signal what the court called city-approved values or views. The court cited with approval a flag policy from the city of San Jose, which says, quote, flagpoles are not intended to serve as a forum for free expression by the public. And it goes on to list approved flags that may be flown, quote, as an expression of the city's official sentiments. And what happens if people don't like the gay pride flag and they take issue with the decision of the town council or other government that decides to fly it? Well, they can try to vote those officials out of office. And in a line I really love, the court said, the Constitution relies first and foremost on the ballot box, not on rules against viewpoint discrimination, to check the government when it speaks. So for all these reasons, here's my bottom line advice. I suggest we scrap our existing flag policy. Let me go back and write something for your next meeting. We should make clear that all flagpoles owned by the town are exclusively used to express government speech. That is, official town sentiments. We could perhaps list the flags to be permitted and add to that list as time goes on. We should delete all references to 501c3 groups and to people who rent space at the Civic Center or reserve space on the Common. We'll raise such flags as express the official viewpoint of the town of Wakefield and no others. And if anybody disagrees with that official viewpoint, that's why we have elections.
Thank you, Tom. I wish you were a professor while I was in law school. That was great, a great summary. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, just a question, thinking about the request that I believe the Board of Library Trustees granted for the flying of the Juneteenth and Pride flags on the second flagpole next month. You know, from your perspective, Council Mullen, is that something that we should be looking at in light of a new policy? Do we feel that the way that that discussion came about, given that it was requested by the Human Rights Commission, which is an organ of town government, is appropriate under the Shurtleff decision? How do we think about that decision, in your opinion?
So I guess I think about it in two ways. First, whose decision is it with respect to any given flagpole? And we've got this problem in town government that they don't have in city government, because in a city, everything is under the control of the mayor, basically. In a town, of course, we're a hydra-headed organization. And the schools, the school committee, I would say, has control over the flagpoles that fly in front of the schools. The library trustees, I think, have even clearer authority over the flagpoles in front of the library, and the town council has the rest. But whichever entity it is that decides which flags fly, I would recommend that they make clear in their policy that it's not a public forum, it's an expression of government speech, and that they make a substantive decision. We're going to fly this flag because we like what it says. And that's a kind of sea change from at least the thought process I approached it as. I used to think that it was best for us to have a kind of viewpoint neutrality. But Shurtleff makes clear, if we're talking about government speech, you want to be explicit. It's not a public forum. You're making a substantive choice.
Councilor Dombrowski?
I appreciate this very much, Mr. Mullen. I think you did an excellent job of summarizing. You just left out the part about the architecture of City Hall, which was raised in a rather odd way towards the beginning of the opinion. I have some concerns about and some reservations about the idea of this body expressing the official viewpoint of the town of Wakefield. I don't know that we should be in the business of calling balls and strikes generally when it comes to which flag should or should not be flown, especially when we have no substantive policy really to guide us. I think in some ways we had almost like a procedure or a process with the AmeriCal and renting out that space, which seemed to logically connect with that flagpole. And I think we're in very different territory now. And I think that the notion that we're going to be calling balls and strikes going forward on what should and should not be up, and we're stating the viewpoint of the town by an approval or a denial, raises some concerns for me. I don't know, I don't know if that's the direction that this body and those that follow should be headed in with this, candidly. And I'm almost wondering if we just are to a point now where we just look at the American flag and say, the American flag and the POW/MIA flag, like those are the only uniting flags that we're going to have. And I think it's something that we can certainly pick up in a discussion in 2 weeks' time on. But, I think about how many flags I see for Ukraine right now. And that is a single symbol that is unifying everyone. And we're all, united in saying, that's where we stand behind, and that's a country, and that's a sovereign, power that we're all supporting. They're all one, and we're all one with them. And is it too much to expect that perhaps the American flag and the POW/MIA flag serves that same purpose for us and represents all of our thoughts and values, and perhaps we have way too much emphasis on what a flag represents, but instead there are so many different ways that within our community we can act in ways that show that we're an inclusive community and show that we're a welcoming community, that show that we respect a lot of different viewpoints on things. And I think we still have that same issue of unintended consequences when we are, in essence, flying blind and saying, we're going to take it on a case-by-case basis, and whatever at a given point in time, a given body of 4 believes, this to be the official viewpoint of the town of Wakefield. I don't think that that's something that is probably going to be the direction we want to be heading in as a body. So I put that out there for further discussion next week or 2 weeks.
Councilor Chines?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I think one of the things that I think was conveniently easy about the policy that we had tying the flying of a flag to the use of the Civic Center is that it allowed us to kind of avoid some of these discussions. But I don't think it's a bad thing for this body to have these discussions about what we want to represent and what we want to show in a public forum. And as I'm thinking about this issue and as the Shurtleff decision came down, I went back to the proclamation we adopted last April, reaffirming our commitment to acceptance and openness among all citizens, where I think we did explicitly take a stand. And, I'm looking at the proclamation now, and, we say it's our intention to adopt policies and practices that reaffirm Wakefield's place as a welcoming community that values diversity and inclusion. So as I think about flying the pride flag, as I think about flying the Juneteenth flag, I think those are symbols, and they should not be all that we do, but I think they are symbols that are an important perspective of the policy of this town, that this body, many of us who were here when we adopted this, have already accepted, and positions that we've already taken as a public body. I'm very comfortable with the idea of kind of taking these as they come, and, I don't necessarily subscribe to the calling balls and strikes methodology, but if we're going to use that one, I'd say I'm comfortable with us calling balls and strikes. I think that's part of what we have to do as a council. And, I'm confident that Town Council Mullen will be able to come up with a policy that I think both reflects the spirit of the Shurtleff decision, but also allows us to be able to make statements that, really do reflect the values that, this community does espouse, and the values that we as a town council have spoken about in the past in a loud and singular voice.
Councilor Denny and then Councilor Dombrowski, but this will be on 2 weeks' agenda to be debated. So if you have something to add, please do, but also we will be discussing it in 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say that I'm fully support. I think that it's great as a town council that the town council will change every year, and then maybe every year we vote at the town council votes on it, because it does kind of represent, I think, the values of the town council. So I think that it's kind of like when we develop core values and you're in the mission statement, we are saying these are the core values for, our town or for school. We're in the leadership position. So I think we're able to do that. And, and then I guess people don't like it, they can vote us out if we run again for re-election. I think that's perfect. I mean, I'm happy to share my viewpoints all the time, and if people don't like it, that's okay. So.
Thank you, Anne. Councilor Dombrowski?
I think we'll go back to the statement, Councilor Shines, though, of inclusion. Inclusion means all viewpoints, and some viewpoints people may not like, but that doesn't mean that people aren't entitled to have them. And I think that's where my concern lies, because to keep with the baseball, softball analogy, I think the pride flag or the Juneteenth flag, those are kind of softballs, because those are easy ones to get behind. Those aren't the difficult ones, and my comments are not related to either of those flags, because I think they might be a good example to use, but those aren't the tough decisions to be made. And so my bigger concern is that we need to represent all of our community, and our community has very different viewpoints. And so I don't think that in my role, because I feel personally strongly on a particular issue, that I should be one of 4 votes that then becomes the voice or the official policy or viewpoint of the community. And I say this now, to your point, Madam Chair, I won't take more time, but I think we need to keep this in mind for our next meeting when we talk about this in earnest, because I think we have the real potential here for plenty of people to feel disenfranchised because they may not be the groups that we're necessarily thinking of as being disenfranchised at present. And there are a lot of different viewpoints. If you look at the forum in the item, for instance, there are a lot of different viewpoints. I agree with some and not with others. But all of those people, I think, have an equal right to petition this body and then present to us reasons why they believe that their flag or their cause should be presented here. And I think when we get into that business, I think we're going down a path that will end up with outcomes that are probably not expected, and I think it could also have a really divisive effect on our community. And so I think we need to think about this more broadly. And again, this is not about the gay pride flag. It's not about the Juneteenth flag. It's about all those others. And I think it can become quite problematic.
Great, thank you. So it'll be a lively discussion in 2 weeks, unless anyone has anything else to add, but we will get the flag policy and look forward to this conversation.
I just want a clarification. So Councilor Danahy and I did attend the trustees meeting where they did vote to fly the 2 flags for June. They are the public body, elected body, that made that decision. Shirtlift had come out, and we had gotten some input in writing from Councilor Mullen. So I just want to clarify that is going forward, regardless of, is that, I guess I'm looking at you, Tom. That can still move forward?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want everybody to understand that that will be raised because we're not meeting again technically, possibly. We have
Until
town
June
meeting.
13th is our next
Right.
meeting.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
So the flags those 2 particular flags, the Pride flag and the Juneteenth flag, will fly at the library in June.
That vote and decision had already been made.
Yep.
We are working on a flag policy for the future.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Okay, thank you, Tom, for all your work on that. Item 11, donations. 11A, request to donate library discard to the Friends of the Library.
So moved.
Julie?
Second, sorry.
Great.
Somebody else can second if
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Great. Item 11B, request to accept and expand a gift or gifts in the amount of $655 to the library from various donors with thanks.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Great. Unanimous. And item 11C, request to accept and expand a gift or gifts in the amount of $235 to the Council on Aging from various donors with thanks.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Unanimous, Sherry. Item 12, announcements. Any announcements? Councilor Danahy.
I just want to say is that thank you to everybody who completed the survey for the master plan. We had a huge response rate of 560 respondents, so thank you all. It's a really important thing. We hear a lot of people talking about what they want, and now this is an opportunity to have your voice heard. So that's fantastic, and thank you to Jen McDonald and Aaron Kokinda who really pushed that survey out and did a great job of getting survey respondents. And I also wanted to thank Julie for her year of being chair. You were a perfect chair when I came on board, and thank you for your leadership. And, I did lean on you, calling you for, advice, and I really appreciate that. So it was a wonderful year with you. And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to Maureen being chair. Maureen loves Wakefield so much so I'm happy that you accepted the nomination and willing to take on a lot more hours, of unpaid work, but it is a testament to how much you really do care about this community. So thank you. I'm looking forward to your leadership and being guided by you. And Jonathan, congratulations to you. Congratulations on your election, and also on being elected as vice chair. I look forward to your leadership as well. And I'm so excited about the upcoming year. I think it's going to be a great year. So I'm happy.
Thank you so much. Councilor Chines.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to echo Ann's thanks to Julie for her work. Certainly Ed knows this, and I think everyone on the council knows this, but sometimes I don't think the public appreciates how much extra work actually goes into being chair. And it really represents a huge commitment. And Julie, you did it with grace and compassion. And, I can't say that I'm surprised that you were a fantastic chair because, having served with you, I wouldn't have expected anything else. But thank you for everything you've done and all your service and continued services. You help Maureen and I, mostly Maureen, figure out what to do over the next year. A couple of other announcements. I wanted to put a plug out there for the Wakefield High School's production of The Wizard of Oz, which my family and I saw yesterday, and it was just incredible. The theater program at the high school is really one of the gems of the town, and it was just great to see them back in their first musical performance in over 2.5 years, I think, if not 3 years. It is still on Friday and Saturday. I think there are still tickets available, so if you are looking for a great evening of entertainment, please check that out. Continuing with some of our young people and some of the amazing things that our young people do, the Youth Council is hosting a focus group for 7th and 8th graders focused on keeping the courts and fields at the Galvin clean. So this has been an issue that's come up a lot in the Rec Commission's meetings as well as in the Youth Council. This was what prompted the Youth Council to do their cleanup effort back in the fall. And they're really trying to figure out how they can engage with students to really take some accountability for not getting our public spaces into a place where they need to be cleaned up as regularly. So that'll be this Thursday, the 12th at 2:30, again, open to 7th and 8th graders right after school at the Galvin. And then finally, just wanted to mention the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt are having their annual meeting and dinner next Wednesday, or a few Wednesdays from now, on the 1st at Bear Hill Country Club. Great opportunity to meet some really, great volunteers in Wakefield and to get involved with an organization that is really committed to protecting something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any updates, Councillor Smith-Galvin?
Sure. I feel like I haven't given an update in a year. So I'm going to go back to my environmental stuff. So furthest out, just so people can plan, on July 17th, the Safe Streets Working Group and the town are working together to, I'm not saying close streets, to open streets to pedestrians and bicyclists and people who want to enjoy the lake. It's a Sunday afternoon. I think it's from 12 to 4. We'll be opening up the southbound lane of Main Street along the lake and Church Street, and then putting some barriers along North Ave. So North Ave will be open in both directions, but there'll be some visual things so that people can really enjoy time around the lake, and we're working on some other activities around that. So put July 17th on your calendar for Safe Street Sunday. This Saturday, closer, we have a recycling event that Representative Kate Lipper-Garabiti has organized. I haven't been actually that involved, but I think it's going to be a wonderful event. Lots of opportunities to recycle, to come and learn. I know humidifiers are being recycled. The Environmental Sustainability Committee is collecting hard plastics, electronics. Steve might be able to remind me if I'm missing
Plastic
anything.
bags, I think,
Plastic
too.
bags.
And it's all on the website. There's a nice write-up on the website, too.
Yeah, so the 10 to 1 at the high school, there'll be a drive-through in front of the high school, and then there'll be a number of organizations set up to share information. Black Earth Composting, Safe Streets Working Group, Environmental Committee will be there. And then on Wednesday, the Light Department, we spent a lot of time today talking about environment and getting off of fossil fuels. The commissioners have put on their agenda for Wednesday evening at their meeting to discuss their Wakefield's involvement in the Peabody Power Plant, which is a fossil fuel power plant that Wakefield is one of the largest purchasers of. It has not yet built. It's going to be built in Peabody. It's just really, frankly, a travesty, personally, that Wakefield is taking such a big role in this, and the Light Commission is going to be talking about it and taking a vote on the continued participation in that on Wednesday. So if you're interested in that, please tune in. And then finally, I just want to, sorry, I know you wanted to finish by 9, and I'm right on the cusp. But I just wanted to especially welcome Bob Vincent to the council. Both Bob and I went to the same middle school in a little town in La Plata. Maryland, La Plata, Maryland, 9,000 people. We both went to Milton Summers Middle School, and somehow we ended up here in Wakefield on the council together. So it's a small town story.
Thank you, that's all I have.
That is great, and thank you for sharing that story.
Counselor Dombrowski?
I just remind everyone that town meeting is a week from tonight. Incredibly important. We have a $108 million plus budget that's going to be voted on, so incredibly important to make sure that you come out and support your town and your priorities. And also the AP Senior Art Show is beginning this Friday. It's 6 to 8 p.m. at the Albion Cultural Exchange on Friday evening. And also, we won't meet again before Memorial Day, so I just want to recognize all those who have sacrificed for our freedoms. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just do two updates just to build on what Julie said of small towns. Just this might be the first time in history where there's two Tufts jumbos as chair and vice chair. So please tell Dr. Mayo next time you talk to him, Steve.
Just to be clear, not only two Tufts jumbos, but two Tufts jumbos from the class of 1999.
Yeah, same year. So there's something
I couldn't get into Tufts. Or Brown or Harvard, I don't know.
And then just the one other announcement, time goes by so quickly, but just wanted to thank the town clerk and her staff on successful elections that we had a couple of weeks ago, and got re-election of 2 members and Councilor Vincent joining us. But just, Betsy does a great job. And so thank you. I think, last year was the year of 5 elections. This year will be the year of 5 elections. So I think we've got 2 more to go. So she's had 2 more to go. So thank you for all the work there. Steve or Tom, any updates?
I just had one thing. I did want to thank Julie for an excellent year of chair. Kind of hard to come in, and maybe it was even the hardest part of the pandemic as we were kind of pulling our way out of it. So you ran the meetings with grace. It was a wonderful meeting with you. I'll miss you Monday mornings at 8 o'clock, but I'm still there, so you can still come by. You must still come by, and I really did a wonderful job as chair, and thank you for serving with us. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 13, matters not anticipated for agenda. Anything to add? Okay, item 14, can I get a motion to adjourn until our next meeting on June 13th?
So moved.
Second.
Great, all in favor? Say aye. I'm gonna use my gavel. Thank you, meeting adjourned.
Compassion and empathy.
Thank you, everyone.